Hello, we're Team One. This is our presentation for our Recipe Vault API. I'm Brandon Teseo, the lead tester on our team.
I'm Ryan, the the document developer.
I'm Tyler. I am an API developer.
And I'm Ricardo. I am the deployment expert.
Okay, and then switch slides. So a little bit about our API. The purpose of it is for creating and storing recipes in a database. It utilizes various CRUD endpoints that we just use to interact with the various resources we implemented. And it's basically just designed for people who are interested in sharing and viewing recipes online. So yeah, and now go to the next slide.
Hey there. Today I'm going to be going over the resources. For starters, we have 4 resources, starting off with users. This is the resource responsible for creating and logging into accounts, user or admin, and to manage these resources below. The first one being recipes. This resource is responsible for holding recipe information, such as steps, ingredients, and notes for the recipe. And then next would be recipe categories. This is used by the users to classify recipes and to create into groups. And lastly, we have the reviews, and this is used to read and write reviews on the recipes.
So for the relationships, we have 4 main relationships, and that's users to recipes. So one user can have many different recipes. And we have one to many for users to reviews. So one user can write many reviews. We also have one to many for recipes to reviews. So one recipe can have many reviews. And then the same goes for categories. We have one to many for categories to recipes. So one category can have many recipes.
All right, so here we go. This is our recipe API, and as you can see, it is deployed on render.com, so anyone in the world can access it. Woohoo! All right, so first thing we have for our recipe API is get all recipes. This gets all recipes in the database. Sorry, I was doing some testing earlier, but assuming that you got all recipes in the database, you would get a list of all recipe objects as such. Next one we have is for posting a recipe. This one allows you to create a recipe. And assuming you put in the right syntax, which is title, description, ingredient, steps, and notes, you will have a recipe created, which automatically gets its ID. And if you do it wrong, well, you'll get an error. And for get recipe by ID, very simple. You'll have pretty much just gets the recipe by ID. So if you have an ID of 1 and you want to see the first recipe in the database, you'll get that back. And for put, you can update a recipe, a specific recipe in the database. So you're required to have an ID for this. And nice thing about this is you don't need to have every field populated here. You just need to have a few. So you can update the title or the description or the whole thing at once. It's up to you. The next thing is deleting recipe. You put the ID in for the recipe and it's gone. Woo-hoo. Next thing is getting all users for getting all recipes for a user and getting all reviews for a recipe. So if you go to a recipe, put the ID in, and then do /reviews, you'll get all the reviews for that recipe, which we'll talk about reviews later. And the same thing for user /ID, you can get all recipes for a user. So if you're logged in as John Doe and John Doe created 3 recipes, you can get all the recipes that user created. And same thing for reviews. If I have a recipe for bread and I want to see all the reviews for bread, you can use this API route to do that. All right, and next we have our user routes.
Here we get the get all users. Here it does what you think it does. If you try it out, it'll just go ahead and retrieve all the users. We're not logged in right now, so it won't do anything, but we'll get to that in a second. And then you can also get the get users me, and that'll just get you the information of the account that's currently logged in, which should be you. All right, and then we have put users me, and then this is just to update your account, and you can do things like update your email or your password. And then delete, this just deletes the current user.
I got it. All right, so next one we have is patch the role of a user. This basically just lets you, if you're an admin, you can change a user's role. We have two types of roles in the system. It's just admin and user, so you can swap them between that if you're an admin. The next one we have is the ability to delete another user, so someone other than yourself. This is something, again, that only an admin can do. So if you try to do it as a user, you'll get stopped. But yeah, and then with that being said, we're going to go on how our authorization works.
Cool, yeah. So for authorization, in order to do any of our routes, you can see that they have a lock on them. All of our routes have this, which means you need to be authenticated to do anything in our API. Luckily, all you need to do in order to be authenticated is to sign up. And our first method is to sign up. So assuming that I am a user for new user at example.com, I can sign up as this user. We'll just go ahead and show that real quick. And bam, I am, email's already been used because I already tried this earlier. But assuming that I had not done this, this would work. And I guess this is a good showcase of our edge cases working. But essentially, sign up allows you to create an account. And when you create an account, it gives you a token in return. But instead of returning that token to you as a bearer token, it stores it in a cookie. And this uses Express's cookie parser module in order to do so. So basically, we have a middleware function that allows us to check if the user is logged in or has a valid token every time before going on to the next route. And we access the JWT token by accessing the cookie first, and then accessing the token from there, and then using JWT verify. So all in all, this allows us to not have to require the user to put the bearer token in the head every single time they want to do something. So in short, we have a login function, which allows you to log in using your email and your password. And then assuming you don't do that, it'll just say invalid credentials. Right. Moving on to sign up. This allows the user to sign up. You are required to put your email and password in, and it'll create your user, or it'll say email and password are required or email already in use, assuming that you don't do that. And the last one is logout, which essentially just sets the JWT time to live to 0, deleting your cookie and token, and effectively logging you out. So that's authentication. Moving on to reviews.
So for reviews, we have all the basic operations that you can with the other one. So you can get the reviews, and that'll just show you all the reviews for every single recipe that is on the that is currently in the API. As you can see, the next one is post review. So this is for you to be able to write a review for a specific recipe. So you give it which recipe you want to write the review for, and then the content is just what you want to write about it. The next one is getting review by the ID. And so this is if you want to find a specific review for a specific, or by a specific review by its, not by the recipe ID, but by the ID of the review itself. And then if we keep moving, we can see that we have the next operation, which is updating the review. So if you want to change your mind on a review that you gave before, you put the ID of the review that you wrote, and then you can change that there. And then lastly, we do have delete. So you can delete any review that you wrote, and you can only delete your reviews.
So next is recipe categories. These are just categories that we can implement in order to organize all of our recipes. So the first one we have is get all, just returns every kind of recipe that we have. And each recipe category is just an ID and a name. Next we have is post, where you are able to make recipe categories, and each one of those you just pass in a name you want to use, and it has to be a unique name, of course. So if you do try to pass in a non-unique name, it'll not let you do it. Next is get recipe categories by ID. Just if you want to get a specific recipe category using its ID, that's how you do that. Next, we got update recipe category. You can pass the ID of one to change the name of it if you want. And again, that uniqueness constraint does apply still. And last but not least, we have delete a recipe category, which is the same idea as before. Just pass in the ID and you can delete a recipe category. And just a quick note, update and delete are admin only features. And yeah, and then I think we'll pass it on to Tyler for middleware.
So to start off, I worked on all the middleware, and so besides this one, auth middleware, this has the protect route, which our amazing documenter worked on. and he helped make this protect route. But for starters, just to go through briefly, authorized ownership would be the first one. This just makes sure that you are owning the stuff that you are trying to work on, that you can't delete other users' recipes or you can't delete other people's stuff unless you have the admin permission to do so. But we want to make sure that you are only access it and move around and update or delete your own stuff. Next, we have authorized roles. This just makes sure for when admin is needed somewhere that we use the authorized roles to make sure that someone is an admin. Next, we have the handle validation errors. This is used in all the functions just for when an error is thrown, that we catch this with the handle validation errors to make sure nothing explodes. Next up here, we have the rate limiter. We have a general limiter and a strict limiter. Both here are used just so people don't log in too many times or we have any kind of brute force attacks to prevent anybody from trying to log in anybody else's stuff. Next here we have the validate ID. This just makes sure that is a little function made to validate an ID parameter, making sure that it is in fact a number. And to start off here with the specific validations for each resource. These all follow the same thing where we have a create and update to make sure that when you're creating or updating, modifying what they are, that you have this same idea of making sure that the name is required or that something like it be minimum 3 characters, less than more than 3 characters. Same thing here with recipes. Same thing, making sure that it has the requested parts of it, having the title, having the category ID. And really quickly, I want to demonstrate, just to give an example, title must be at least 3 characters long. So I can go over here. For example, here, for the create, if we want to create a new recipe and we have the title being less than 3 characters, we can come down and we see that we get the error response is 400 and that the title must be at least 3 characters long. Moving on here, same thing, just creating recipe and updating, creating review and updating review. Same code of all these, making sure it passes through some validations. And for the users, this is some validation when creating a new user, updating the user role when an admin wants to update a user's role, and for updating yourself if you want to update your own email and password. And that's all for my middleware.
All right, so let's just quickly talk about the Postman collection. I set all of it up, so it just has every endpoint that we previously mentioned in our Swagger UI. You know, get, post, put, delete for each each resource. They're all organized into folders, as you can see here, based on the resource, recipe categories, users, as well as authentication down here. And under each resource or each endpoint, except for the get all, we do have examples that you can use. Based on like what kind of response you want to get. So if you have a put in a valid ID, maybe you want an invalid ID with a positive integer, a non-integer, or like a negative integer, so on and so forth. I have all of those for each one, missing specific body parameters. So yeah, just a bunch of different ways to test our API. And yeah, and with that, we're going to go back to the slides.
For teamwork and GitHub workflow, this was how we were able to delegate tasks and communicate. And the first way we did this was using GitHub. GitHub was a great experience for the most part. We were able to split up tasks, push code, and combine our branches together in order to create a product that worked. And when we reiterate, it was really easy to split up tasks this way. And what allowed us to do this was we used Discord for task allocation. So we were able to communicate how we wanted to split up tasks. We were able to communicate how what needed to be done next. We were able to hop in calls and talk about things that needed to be done. Overall, a really great way to get that done. For the feedback on GitHub, GitHub was very helpful. Definitely would not have been possible to do this project without it, or at least using some similar repository project or application. I think our biggest issue overall with the GitHub workflow was having to approve pull requests. We would all be coding and pushing things to our main branches and having to wait for 2 people to approve. Merging into main every single time got a little bit annoying. But other than that, overall pretty good experience. One thing not mentioned on these slides here is we also had a Google Drive folder that had our outlines and our ER diagrams, as well as the slideshow you're seeing right now.